Hello, everyone. Welcome back. For those people who are used to my normal background and normal getup, for those of us here in the United States, it is nearing Christmas time, and so I went with a theme-appropriate background. So, and my little hat. So tonight I'm going to once again kind of deviate from my usual WPF stuff and go and play on a library called System.CommandLine. So for those people who've watched a bunch of my videos, you'll know that this is a library I've gone back to and worked on many times. So it's underneath the .NET organization, and it's specifically a library about trying to make building command line applications easy and fun because as much fun as it is to try and parse that string array that comes into your main method yourself, please don't ever do that. There are much better ways out there, and specifically once you want to do fancy things like, say, enable suggestions for your app, things start to get pretty complicated pretty quick. So we are going to go and take a look at that. So, hoorah! I remember my own key binding. So for those people who are interested, that's the library there that we're going to take a look at. And there's a couple things I'm going to kind of draw your attention to first. So if we come down to the README, you'll know, or yeah, the main README on the repository. There's a couple things here, and it's in tiny print. But if you were to say open up this NuGet thing, you'll note this is kind of a small library with a mere 5.4 million downloads, give or take. But you'll note one sort of problematic bit is this guy here is still listed in preview NuGet package. And so there is a strong desire to finally get this thing released so that there is a stable release for it. And if we come over here and check out the milestones, what do we have here? There is a GA milestone. So there is, like I said, a strong push to get this thing ready for GA, and there is a list of stuff in here. So tonight, my plan is to go through and do my best to try and push this along as best we can. So we are going to jump in and see what we can do. So this guy here, you'll note, has already been assigned to me, which is great. And so let's go through and kind of break this down just a little bit for people who may not be familiar with this. So there, as part of the command line documentation, if we jump back here, let's just go to the root of the repository. So there is technically a wiki on this thing, right? But the wiki has now moved inside of the docs folder itself to try and get like change tracking and that kind of stuff. Because with wikis in GitHub, you don't get a lot of that. And so there's technical motivations, functional goals, and in one of these things here, there's a lot of stuff. There was a great write-up. Where did it go? Syntax, concepts, and parsers. This is what we're interested in right here. So this is one of those things that's important to know when you start to go and build out a command line app, is because you have effectively a public API that you're building. The commands that people pass to your app, along with the options and their corresponding arguments, effectively make up a public API that your app can do. You can imagine like the .NET CLI, right? So when you do .NET --help, right? There's all these commands that I can pass, and there's these options that I've got available to me, and some of these things take arguments, and I can do all of that stuff. So it's very similar to that. And so this just breaks down this whole list. So the key things to note is what is a command, which is effectively like your verb, right? So if we look at like the .NET CLI, for example, add would be a command. So it's the thing that I'm going to tell it to do. Inside of that are the options. These are what people are used to seeing with like your -- specify a thing. And then down inside of this, does it call out? Doesn't actually call. There it is. Arguments and arity. The thing that you actually pass to it here, this is the argument to the option. So some options, like say Boolean options, maybe just specifying it is a flag for on off. But some things, like say in this case an int option, take in an argument of 1, 2, 3. So given that, and for people who are interested, Boom. There's that docs page. Okay, so this bug here that we've got, there are multiple commands. So in this case, this user's got it set up with a root command, command 1, command 2, right? And then new and update underneath, right? So there are a whole bunch of things set up here. And as part of building up this CLI, you can attach validators to arguments to make sure that things are valid. It's also important to note on these commands, the root level command or command 1 or 2 could also have their own options and stuff available on them. So in this case, the expected behavior is that when the file doesn't exist, that this validator actually gets invoked. Well, that would be helpful, except for in this case, it is failing in that regard. So we are going to see if we can write up a quick test to simulate this. Then we're going to see if we can fix it. Yeah, so we're going to take a quick look at what we've got here. So this guy here has a root command. Let's see, there's an option. All right, it has an alias. He adds the option to the root command. Okay. We've got an XML command. The XML command has a handler. And then we come down here, we do an invoke async. Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, so this looks like the same little issue. Okay, so step 1, we want to go through and write up a unit test on this. So here is the library. It is all nice and organized. I cloned it just before getting going here, synced up with latest on main, and made sure all of the tests ran. So can't be doing that bad, right? Right? It works. Okay, so in this case, let's go command line tests, and let's see if we can find where a good place would be to put this test. So if we jump back over to here. Oh, I also got a new mechanical keyboard. So if you hear a bunch of clicky clacky, that is me playing with a new toy. Okay, so parser and model binder. Okay, so we're going to be going in the parsing and or binding. What I'm sort of looking for is like a validator tests or similar. Let's just okay, collapse. So let's see. We've got argument tests. That's maybe a possibility. Parsing validation tests. Yeah, let's go here. This looks like a pretty good spot. Why is this showing up twice? Oh, is it because it's multi-targeted? Are there 2 target framework monikers? No, there's only one. Parsing validation tests. Why am I getting 2 hits here? They both go to the same spot. In fact, I'm now noticing all of these are doubled over. Huh, there must be a grouping setting or something that I don't understand. Interesting. Okay, well, regardless, this looks like the guy. Okay, so we want to set this up to make sure that we can do this. So this guy is using the from among. That does not collapse. Same thing there. What I'm really looking for, and maybe we should just go hunt this down, is I was hunting for this add validator. Is sort of where I was envisioning going. Not there. Not there. This has got the required stuff on it. Add validator. Okay. Yeah. So this is where we want to go. We want to pick on this custom something similar to these guys. Okay. So extra white space. Clean it up. Extra white space. Clean it up. Let's see. So custom validator. In this case, we've got a command with options 1 and 2. Adds a custom validator. so custom validator can be added to an option. So in this case, was the validator on the command or the option? Oh, this was on the argument itself. Okay, so let's keep going down. Can be added to an argument. Hey, look at that. Okay, and this was an argument that was added to a root command. Show. I think the issue here is that we want to add a validator to say our root command. And then we want it to actually execute and, you know, do its thing. So we're going to collapse this because I think this is the closest thing to what we've got. But I want to make sure that we start this off. So in good test-driven development fashion, we are going to write a test first and verify that we can recreate the failure case because we know all these tests above. How about all validators are executed. Let's see here. Oh, and I am once again forgetting to run Karnak. So we'll get that turned on. So input file argument. So let's see. I have 3 options that are all applicable to all handlers. Command 1, command 2. So command 1 is a terminating command. There's nothing nested into it. Command 2 has 2 subcommands. They are -f file info and -o file info. I added these options to the root command doing these. So we need a root command, and we need, I think we just need a root command with an option for, say, a file info or similar. I don't know if it matters too much. And then we want to invoke a subcommand on it. And I think that's the failure case. So let's start with this. We've got a root command. So let's rename you. How about root command var subcommand gets new command, and I'm trying to remember, do you have subcommand? Sounds great. So root command, just be aware, in the case for like a command line app, this would be like the name of your executable, for example, when it kicks off. And that's what this guy will default to. Let's move you up here, and then let's just break you up a little bit. Extra points for knowing how to type, which apparently I don't. Let's see, subcommand, right? And so the issue is, let's see, this guy's got a custom validator, sure. Parse subcommand. And let's, this is directly, let's do it. Let's create an option. It's bothering me a little bit because setting this argument is going to get a little weird. And let's actually do a file info as well. We'll try to keep it close to the issue. Var option gets new option. Wow. Spelling's hard today. Let's see. File. Sure, that sounds great. And you are going to have argument. So we're going to take. Oh, can I not add that way? Here. File info. Right? Boom. Something like that. And then option, argument, add validator, right? So this is what we're going to put in here. And then we got to do something, right? The validator in this case takes in this delegate here. And this delegate just takes in a value and then returns back an optional string. So the string in this case is the error message. So not returning a string, right? That's your success case. And I think what we can do is we'll just whack. We don't need any of that. Don't need any of that. Yeah. And invoked validator, right? So this should then be invoked validator. Let's see. Errors should contain symbol. Do we care about this? I think it's going to be actually the argument from the option, but we'll double check that. Let's see, invoked validator, and the thing that we want to pass then is file, I don't know, foo, right? Okay, and so this, I assume what we're going to get back on this parse result here. So this result object is a parse result, which contains a whole bunch of stuff. But I suspect when we run this, what we're going to get back is no errors. Because this should theoretically work. Because this is a valid file name, I think. Okay, so let's look. Oh, we got 2 errors. Unrecognized command argument file. Unrecognized command. Oh. Like that, I believe, right? Let me just double check this. Yeah, it's supposed to have the dash dash in front of it. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. I will do it correctly. Older versions of this API used to like append the prefix and whatnot for you, and that got problematic. Okay, so 2 errors. Unrecognized command or argument. Huh? Oh, I have not attached this option to anything, so it doesn't know what to do with it. That, unfortunately, makes perfect sense. So let's go ahead and tack that guy on, and we'll try this again. Yeah. Something tells me we can drop this dash dash. I thought at one point we could. Okay, so still errors. Unrecognized command or argument file. Okay, what is this guy doing? Global option, blah, blah, blah. Root command, add global option. Okay, so let's go up here. Add global option. All right? That goes there. Still a little confused as to why that's not working. This guy doesn't have any options. I wonder if I move this over in front of the command, if that would make sense. Let's take a look. Oh, that's looking better. Invoked validator. That's very disappointing, because that seems to imply that it did get invoked. I don't like that. Okay, so that's both good and bad. Because on one hand, it is good in the fact that this is behaving as designed. Bad, it means we might not have to do much for this. So this will be foo. And what we are going to do is we are going to go all the way over to here. This guy here is just going to grab the whole thing and dump it right there. So lots of stuff, lots of stuff, lots of stuff. Let's see here. In option required. I think this changed to is required. Yeah. So that example was done on a slightly older version of the API. It's okay. We can adjust. That works. And then let's look. So This guy is passing this through here, and specifically in file, I'm missing input. After your XML command in the debugger, it will validate. Ah, so it's when you specify it before this. Okay, hold on. That may answer the question. So this works, right? This might not. Order of operations. And in general, the order isn't supposed to matter except for when selecting the subcommand. So if we check the errors, invoked validator. Okay, so that worked. Okay, coming back here now. So let's come back here and try this out. So rather than doing that, we are going to do parse on it. And we are going to pass in that exact string that was given there. And paste that. And then we will investigate the return of this, because if this is working, there's a very real chance that this may have been fixed in a newer version. That's fortunately one of the problems. Parse result errors. File does not exist. File missing input. Okay, that seems to be, looks like the same issue, blah, blah, blah. Because this was back on May, so there's only been a few changes since May. By a few, I mean tons. Yeah, so this appears to work. I think what we're going to do is we will leave, I think what we're going to do in both cases here. So I'm going to get rid of this because we don't need this anymore. And I think we're going to change up our test to a theory. Right? And I think what we are going to do is do something kind of like this. So string command line, right? Because we want to make sure that this works. Inline data. And we're going to do, right? We're going to do this. Validators. Let's change this to be something a little more explicit. How about custom validators, or maybe not even custom, because this is just all validators. Validators on global options are executed when invoking a subcommand. That seems more accurate to what we're testing here, right? That's going to go there. We're going to go boom boom, right? And then we're going to move this guy to the end. Yeah, and then we are going to run this and confirm that we go green again. And this might be a very easy test. Look at that. It went green. Woot woot. So that was a little too easy. Normally things are supposed to be a little more challenging than that. So okay. There is. Okay, well, let's make a branch, and we will because our goal is to try and snipe some of these things off, just want to make absolutely certain, because the argument here was this didn't appear to work before, and now it clearly does. So we'll have a test at least proving that. Let's see, adding unit test to ensure validators are invoked. And we're just gonna check this over. So we cleaned up a couple white space things. And that looks pretty good to me. Looks good to me. So commit, push, yeah, sure. Go there, and then we will go and let's resolve some stuff. So if we refresh here, oh, I guess I didn't even need to refresh. I just need to be patient. Let's see, fixes 881. Boom. The issue referenced appears to already be fixed. Added in an explicit unit test for the described behavior. Yeah, that seems good to me. And create pull request. Well, that was easy. Let's go do another one. See how much fun this is? Seriously though, if people are interested in helping out on this project, obviously these things are the high priority ones. Anything that doesn't have the needs discussion on here is fair game. Specifically, if you want to find an easy way to things to jump onto, things with like the help wanted tag are a great starting point of where you want to dive into. So any of these things, these are implicitly them asking for if people want to submit a PR for it, they would happily be considered. Okay, so let's go back and let's take a look at that milestone, and let's see what we want to try to bite off next. So the needs discussion ones we're just gonna skip right out. CLS compliant. Okay, so the theory here, I think, is that we just need to add an attribute, right? I think that's literally all we have to do is use to indicate whether a particular complies with common. So we literally just need to slap on an assembly level attribute. Okay, that sounds easy. Let's go back to main and let's we'll preemptively make this branch. So create branch, fix, and what was our issue number? Close that for now. We are on 641 now. So you will note some of these issue numbers are quite small. It's because they're quite old. Okay, so back to here, back to here. Okay, so let's go see what we can do. Clear that out. Okay, so this is the library in question that we want to add it to. Question is there a reasonable place to put it? So let's just see if there are any assembly level attributes already being added. There's that. Part of me is wondering if there is a something in the back of my mind is telling me that there is a CSproj property you can set to turn this on. Let's see. Yeah, so there's naming stuff. Like there's extra rules, but there's this library itself doesn't. Like there's nothing really fancy going on in here. This is standard C#. There's nothing magical. Yeah, because it's worth noting, like in different .NET languages, there are things that you can do in one language that are not available in another. So by turning this on, you're accepting that you're going to do, say, least common denominator on all these guys, right? So, yeah. Those are all the magical things. Yeah. So is there? Boy, something is telling me that there is another option. Let's look over here. So this is going to look different. You'll note I just did project properties. So I am on a preview version of Visual Studio, but I think this is also in the latest version of Visual Studio as well. So if you go preview features, there's this awesome little guy in here. These ones. Enable updated project properties UI. So that's what I have on. That's giving me this. So if you are interested, that was tools, options, and then just do a search for preview, or it's down under environment. Okay, so we were going to take a quick look. That's not it. That's not it. I was expecting to find adding an attribute should not be hard. I'm just trying to decide if there is a reasonable place to do this. Okay, well let's go slap her in then and see what we got. Okay, so is there a reasonable place to put this already? So the other one was inside of the config approval test.config.cs. Is that just at the root of the project? Oh, weird. Yeah, so that's a little weird. I don't think we've got a great place to put these. Previously, there was like in the old CSproj formats, they have a nice file underneath the properties nodes, which usually is where these things end up getting dumped. Yeah, so let's go ahead. I'm also just trying to look at these other ones to see if anything in here matters. Well, let's start with this. We're gonna dump it in here, right? And then we're gonna compile and just make sure our world still works. All right, so that is all it takes. Not actually sure that this is where it belongs, but almost assuredly doesn't belong here. Yes, please enable awesome IntelliSense for me. That would be great. I approve of IntelliCode. And that appears to work. Run all the tests. There's only a couple tests in this project. Or I guess in this repository. But you'll also note that they tend to run really, really, really fast. If you want a good example of how to do good testing, I would highly recommend checking out this repository. We're gonna just make a new file. I don't see a good place for this. Somebody can yell at me later about the name of the file. I don't know if it's going to matter. Command line. Do that. Literally delete everything out of it and just grab this. Boom, boom. Paste that there. Do the same thing one more time. And we should be good to go. Sweet. Easy mode. Okay, so we will add this in. Let's see, adding CLS. I think it's still on my clipboard, actually. Come here. That'll work. And then, did Karnak stop running? Why does it shut off every so often? That bothers me. Okay, and then back to main, and we will, nope, not there. We want to go back to here, close, close, and we want to go back. That guy's still running, so I'm gonna grab a new tab. There's quite a bit of building and testing that happens on all of these. So as you can tell, it is still running. And show me, did I not push? I did not. So go ahead and push that branch up, and sure. And then we be patient. Hands up. It does work. You just have to be patient. Fixes. Let's see. Pound 641. Create pull request. And back to the milestone. Okay, so we sniped both of those. Let's keep going. That one, let's see, doesn't need discussion. Yeah, this one I think technically needs discussion. There's debate about what the name should be, and I don't know what the correct answer is. Let's see. So, operation canceled exception should not be treated as an error. And I thought there was one more, default exit code. So what is this? When System.CommandLine encounters an error, the program stops with an exit code of 1. It would be nice if this were configurable. Yeah, let's take a crack at this one. Let's take a crack at this. So step 1, let's see if we can identify where the heck this thing gets the exit code of 1. So let's come in here, and there is a method called invoke, or invoke async. That ain't it. This one. This guy here. And I think this is the entry point for it. So you'll note back on the first bug that we started with. We jump back here. Hey, look at that. Checks passed. Woot, woot. On this issue here, generally when you're setting up these CLI apps, what you do is you effectively define your API in some way, right? And then you leverage one of these helper extension methods for doing invocation. So in this case, command invoke async, and it's doing .result. The alternative would have just been root command .invoke. This could have been on a version before we had the both versions of the API. 1 second, I am going to quit out. Some of my coworkers are apparently chatting very actively on Teams, and it is buzzing in my ear. Okay, so that's the entry point. And more importantly, you'll note these methods have int return values. So I'm fairly confident that that is what these guys are doing here. So what we want to do is figure out why does it or where does it get that 1 from? I kind of have a hunch that there is a default exception handler, And I kind of suspect that that is the guy that is just hard coding the return value of 1. That's kind of my suspicion, but we are going to poke around here for just a moment, because this guy comes in here, says create a new invocation pipeline from the parse result, and then invoke. Same with like the invoke async, right? Don't think that matters. These are all just different helpers, but these invokes, I'm fairly confident this is where our entry point is. So this guy here comes in, builds an invocation context, builds an invocation chain, which does this, and then walks through them all and calls get result. So parser configuration middleware contains all of these guys, and this is what invokes the handler. So I'm sort of envisioning get result code. Context invocation result dot apply. What does this do? This is where I'm apply takes an invocation context. Show me your implementations. Help parse error. Yeah, so here's things like this, right? So this looks very promising. Things that set result code. So parse error. And let's see, what is this guy doing? Default UseException Handler. Yeah, so you'll note this guy here. So this is the one in particular. Okay, I think we may have just landed right on it. Encounters an error, the program stops with an exit code of 1. So it's not clear exactly what type of error we're talking about, whether this is a parse error or an invocation error or similar. But I think the ask is the same, right? If right now this guy hard codes a result code, and it would be nice if it didn't. Local function can be made static. Okay, sure. While we're in here, since this is what we're messing with, we'll make you static. So this guy here, UseException Handler. So I think there's actually a couple cases where this might matter, right? Is these guys here are different types of results. So how many implementations of this interface do we have? Go to implementation. So we've got help result, which is fine. Parse directive result, which, okay, you get brought up too because you've got either a 0 or 1. Right? I think the only thing we can safely assume, I think, is everything treats 0 as success, right? It's just non-0 where we have our issues. Okay, so in the library, not counting the tests, we've got at least 3 places that we know of that are explicitly setting it. We've got the exception handler, the parse directive, and the parse error result. So these 3 guys here. I'm kind of thinking so on this context, what exactly do we have, right? So this would be the obvious place to do some work, right? Parse result binding context. The problem is the configuration is sort of lost at this point, because when you're building one of these things up, there is a what is it? Command line configuration. Yeah, this class. So this is kind of an entry point when you're building up your syntax, where you can configure and do some fancy stuff. But obviously this isn't here, and more importantly, it definitely doesn't exist elsewhere. I'm kind of wondering if we do something similar to this, where Because this validation messages class, the intent behind this is it is a class with a bunch of virtual members on it, and a static instance. And so if you want to go through and override any of these messages, all you do is derive from this, create your own class that derives from validation messages, override any member you care about, and return whatever string is important to you. So for the purpose of making things more localizable, that would be an option. There is an issue in the milestone to be aware of. Oh, the other one passed too. Yay. About making things more localizable. But as you can tell, there's not a lot of details in it. So just be aware some of this stuff may change, but the general principle remains the same. And I'm wondering if that's the easiest way to handle this. I wonder if that is what makes the most sense. As we do a structure similar to this. So let's see here. If we do something similar to that, the question is, what do we call it and where do we put it? I'm inclined to put it inside the invocation namespace because I believe that's where this is in Builder. This is inside invocation. Where does this interface live? Inside invocation. I'm inclined to put this inside of invocation. I think that's where it makes the most sense. I'm just wondering if it matters. If it matters whether this is in here or not. The problem with trying to put it on the invocation context and pass those values in is this guy is typically not on an API where somebody gets easy access to it. Because in general, the invocation context is instantiated internally to this library and not really something that you would create and pass in. And that feels a little weird if you have to create it and pass it in. I think what we do, I think I'm more inclined to go with the same route that the validation messages are using. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think I'm trying to decide if you pass anything to it or not. Well, let's start with let's go to the easy case. So, we've got several things we want to test. And let's go write some tests, I think, first. So let's figure out where to do this. So inside of tests, let's look and see, is there an isolated test? Let's see, invocation pipeline test. Well, let's start there. That seems like a logical place. All right, let's just collapse all. And does not handle when middleware throws, then invoke does not handle the exception. This seems to yeah, not quite. By not calling next, clean up the extra white space. Let's see. I think this guy here, when middleware throws, then invoke does not handle the exception. The issue being, I kind of want to have this UseException Handler. Is this not sort of looking for places in the tests? Oh, there is a specific UseException Handler one. Okay, we'll write it here. We'll do this one first. Mostly because this is the first one where I found, let's see, can come before other middleware. output can be customized. Yeah, this seems like a reasonable one to do. So let's come in here. Let's see. UseException Handler can sets custom error code. All right. So we are going to do that. Let's see. Come in here. Use middle. Throw exception. Oops. Let's see. Use exception handler. So if somebody calls use exception handler on exception, let's see. We want to fall into the default case. Right? We don't, so, because technically you could roll your own exception handler. What we're really saying is we want to leave this in place and just customize the behavior of this. So on exception, I think we want to do a, oops, not where we were going. I think I want to do a couple things here. So I think on this one, I want to include result code, custom. I think I'm going to change this name here. Make it match the rest of this. So this will become 22 because reasons. Invoke async should return an int. So we're gonna tack that in first of all, and then let's see. Result code should be 22. All right, so that should go there. Run test, and let's just confirm that this guy works. Because I think there's two cases here. You have a custom exception handler. Okay, so that passes, great. And then the more interesting one then is we have no exception handler, right? So this guy here, and we want to do, let's see, int result code, right? And then this guy, result code should, if people aren't familiar with this API, this is Fluent Assertions. Let's see, should be, and my test, so the answer is 42. Because that is clearly what it should be. Okay, so now the only question then is, how do we expect to set this? So, one, I have an inclination to do this, right? Or, right? Allow for that to be passed in there. Which would be one option, right? That would give us, well, it's the simplest option. So let's go for it. Right? I think I know something about how I want this to work, so we're going to go there. And then I think we do that. And we drop the static that we just added and let it capture that value. And then, right? So first of all, let's do it correctly, right? Start with red. You always see the test go red because you want to validate that your change actually does something. So red, and then boom. So I'm watching this little circle over on the right hand corner if that wasn't apparent. And then go, it didn't go green. Well, that's now awkward. So let's check and see what happened. Let's see. It's expecting this string on the output, and that was never set. So that's the wrong failure. So let's get the right failure first. Okay. Now pass. Okay, so there's that. So that technically handles one of the cases. Is it the right way to handle it? Is it the right API? Because here's the thing. These other ones, I'm going to get rid of validation. For example, this parse result one, right? This is an internal class. Let's just find usages, find our references. All right, so there's that, Use parse directive. So I guess technically we do have this guy here that allows for setting it. Okay, that could work. That could very easily work. Let's see. There was parse. That's test. Too many tabs open. Clear you, parse error result, and this is the other one. So where are you done? Use parse error reporting. So this one here, we could technically do it without going the extra class. This is a little awkward. What is this doing? Use version option. So this does a bunch of stuff with versions. I'm just wondering if you would want to set it as a static outside rather than trying to pass it through everywhere. Because passing it through everywhere can quickly become obnoxious. But if you are building up your own thing, that kind of makes sense. The other thing that I'm noticing, this probably shouldn't be called. Should this be called ResultCode? Feels like this should be called like error result code. Not sure I'm happy with that name. Not sure I'm happy with that name. And I'm intentionally going with the nullable int. So that the thing that bothers me about this, right, is default parameters inside of C#, when you declare it like this updates the call site with this value. Whereas if I make it nullable and do that, it means inside of here, the call sites will all get updated with null, and it's very clear to me that that is not a value being passed, and now I can tweak it inside. So if I ever want to change this from, say, defaulting to 1, my default is now inside of my code rather than updated at a call site somewhere else. That's my thinking. Did that? Excellent. I'm thinking maybe we do just pass. We do this on the other ones. It's the simplest option. Yeah. So find all references. There's only a couple. And I think what we do is this, right? Error result code. Error result code. And then, oh, wait. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go write the test first. Don't care about benchmarks. Command line tests. Do care about this. Parse directive writes parse diagram. This is clearly the right spot and not the right test. And this error is very explicitly not what I want. let's see, when there are errors, parse directive sets exit code to custom value. And this is the part that bothers me, right? Is if anybody's just going through this, this doesn't give you... This means that you are forced to build this up a little bit more. You can't just go straight up invoke async. Because invoke async is going to go here, get invocation pipeline, and it's going to do... Oh, interesting. Trying to remember what the use case was where we needed that. It's going to do this command line builder, use defaults, and defaults is going to build it up. So the big reason I'm pausing here is when it's hard to write the unit test that you want, that should immediately throw a red flag because it means your API is probably wrong or problematic. Because when you write unit tests, you are effectively the first user of your API. And if it's hard for you, as the author, to write the unit test that you want, you probably should rethink the API. So, given that, I'm wondering if it does make more sense to go back to that other option. I'm wondering if it does. The part that bothers me is the moment you start doing a static, you have tightly coupled yourself, and it now makes testing a pain in the neck, which is a problem. Maybe this is okay. I think it's... I think what I'm coming to the conclusion on is that you cannot write your test this way. If you want to do it this way, you really need to go through the fuller syntax, right? So something more akin to this, right? So command, drop that. Let's see, use parse directive, all right? Let's see here. This guy gives me back the parser. Invoke. I guess we were using invoke async before, so we'll do that. We will come over here, dump that guy in, await, wait, let's see, int, exit code, and then exit code should clearly be 42. Yeah, so we'll run test, and we should see this fail. Okay, let's do our due diligence and just make sure that we get what we expect. Expected 42, but found value 1. Okay. So we come back here, error result code. It is interesting. Let's see. I am wondering if this is not necessarily a great way of doing it, but we're gonna go with it. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see. Autocode Generate constructor. That sounds like a great one. Something tells me this isn't the naming scheme. Yeah, read only's fine, but I believe. Let's double check, but I'm pretty confident that fields in here are lower. Just show me underscore. Yeah, lowercase. I thought so. Okay, so that goes there. This becomes, let's see, air result code 42. I'm just using a named parameter here because this guy. Oh, that's probably not going to work. Hey, this is why we write tests, because it's so easy to do exactly what I just did. Let's see. So in this case, we're going to go with, let's see, air result code or 1. All right, so this guy goes here and should go green for me. Great. Let's make sure we didn't break anything else with the parse directive. Okay. So that handles that. So that one is done. That one is done. That one is done. Parse air result. Let's look at this one. So this is the other one that does it. So find all references. And we've got 2. One is here. So I'm going to just bookmark these, which I probably should have been doing from the beginning. Let's see. And then here. So, okay. Karnak, why are you dying? Am I... Might need to double check and make sure that there is. Right? Oh, it's not dying. It's just getting confused on the monitor that I want it to be on. That is not the monitor I told you to go to. Save. There. Stay. Okay. So this guy here comes in from version output. Nope. What is next bookmark? Oh, Control BN. No, Control BN. There we go. And this was use parse error reporting. So I assume we probably have a test already. This is referencing an issue, so let's just take a quick peek. No help shown without parameter. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. So let's bring it in. Parse error. Parse error. Let's see. Uses custom error result code. Okay, so we're gonna go in here. We don't need that as part of our thing. Don't need that. Don't even need that. All right, we can just keep going. You know what? We'll even just keep. It's good to have something be as simple as possible. Let's see. Invoke is all we want. We don't actually care about that. Let's use an explicit type here, since that's what we're going to check on. Result should be 42. We'll get rid of that. All right, so let's run the test, because this should clearly fail. We should get 1 is not 42, last I checked. Most of the time, that is true. but found 0. Oh, this didn't cause a parse error. So what did I do differently? Oh, I changed the syntax. A little. There's a important deal here where this thing has a subcommand to cause it to fail, I believe. And there, but found 1. There. Now we're getting to the case we care about. Okay. So what we expect to do now is we dive into here. We do exactly what we did on the other ones. Grab that off of our clipboard, which is hopefully not too far back. That. Reapply to the clipboard so I don't lose it. And then we'll do a result code. Let's see. Generate. Go ahead and dive in. And then you can get the read-only modifier slapped on you. And we're going to do error result code. Bounce that guy through, which means we come back to our test. Error result code 42. Right? Run. Did we not just go and add you? Okay. Oh, because we have now done it here. So we are going to have to do a little bit of extra coding. That is... This is an argument result. That is interesting. Which this guy here... but that'll get handled higher up. Okay. Okay. Just checking. So we run this guy. We'll have to go deal with the version 1 here in a moment. And huzzah, 42 equals 42. Now this one I know there is tests on because there was a pull request not that long ago that included this. Yeah, so let's just collapse this, and version not valid with other tokens. I believe this is the error condition that we can hit. I don't think, so you can go away now. I don't think there is another error condition that would reasonably trigger this, because this is looking for a validation error, and the only way we get there is if we hit this. So we have to replicate this failure, which means let's grab. Yeah, we're gonna. Well, let's just grab this to begin with. So we'll start here. And then fact. Let's put it next to the other one, I guess. Fact. Public void. Version. Let's see. When the version is not valid, the returns a custom result code. Boom. Okay, so then we're gonna start changing some stuff now. I grabbed the whole thing. That's too much. That's too much. Okay. And then more importantly, we don't need all the command lines. We just need a command line. So we're going to get rid of the handler because I don't believe that is relevant. We don't care about that. We don't care about that. What we do care about is this result code because that is what we are testing here. And this is going to be a should be 42 because that is what it goes to. So is console being used anywhere? I don't think we aren't actually using it to assert anymore, so we can get rid of that. Okay, so run test, and then we will confirm that hopefully 42, but found 1. Okay, so we then go here, and let's see, error result code becomes a 42. And now the test passes. Sweet. I suspect this change is overkill. I suspect just the exception handler was what was realistically needed. So we will submit it and see what comes back. Just gonna quickly validate all of our unit tests and confirm we didn't break anything else. And then let's go and get our, don't need you anymore. Come back to you in a minute. So you are 331. So you all pass, great. Let's see, create branch, fix, 331. Let's see, allowing for customizing error result codes. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's just review the changes real quick and make sure we are sane. Did that, did that, did that, did that. Okay. That is what we did. That is what we did. Let's see here. And then we got a bunch of test stuff. So white space line change, not a big deal. That test. That test. Right, because there's a subtle difference between specifying your own handler and not, and so we did both ways. Let's see, that one there works. That one works. Great. Commit, push. Sure. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see. So we fixed that one already. We'll just bounce back here. Let's see. Fixes. Pound 331. Create pull request. Okay, so we'll let that guy chug for a minute. Let's come back over here. Let's see. That one we just did, so we're gonna let that drop, and then let's take a look. What is this one doing? Operation canceled exception should not be treated as an error. So what we have here is this is registering up a handler for a command, which is great. It is an asynchronous method that takes in a cancellation token, which is fine. We also pass in a cancellation token. This thing just loops forever and then configure await and just writes out. There's a good chance that it will cancel by throwing a task canceled exception or operation canceled exception. Agreed. And it should be treated as cancellation rather than failure. Also agree. When the user presses Control C. Since System command line should be expecting it. So lose the cancellation token. So it's saying ignore the token in the exception because there are plenty of APIs that drop the token. If the default behavior should be different, it can be done in the default exception handler based on the exception type. So yeah, so this would be here. So this guy here is going, the question then becomes, what should we do here? Is should we ignore this? Or I guess what should we do? Right? So if you've got a command handler that looks like this, let's take a look. I think I know what needs to happen, but I'm let's see. Just do a search for cancellation token because I believe my spelling sucks. That's what I believe. Let's see. Cancellation. Okay. This will work in here. Oh, perfect. This is actually where we're going for. So we've got this guy in here. Cancels on process termination. So this is effectively a very similar setup. So we've got a command handler. It takes in an asynchronous delegate, right? And as part of that, it takes in a cancellation token. This guy does a process waiting. And this is the entire program. So let's see here. Yeah. So it does a delay and then catch must remain blocked as long as the command is executed. We are currently blocking that event because cancellation token source canceled is called from the event handler. Actively blocking the event. Okay. It's interesting that this guy here, boy, this looks like something I wrote. Note the very convenient exit code. And I'm wondering if that means we shouldn't use the word result code. We've got, okay. That needs to be considered. There's a mismatch of, I need to take a note real quick. There is a, let's see, so note. There is a mismatch in the APIs between using exit code and result code. Okay. So I think those probably just need to be standardized and cleaned up a little because now I'm confused. And I think I may have written some of this. Okay, so this does some fancy redirect process start stuff. Great. Does the sig term stuff. Okay, so this goes all hog wild and crazy. Oh, that's right. I believe there's actually a bug out to write a Windows version of these because I think you have to do WinProc to send the equivalent term signals across. I think that's what needs to happen. Regardless, this is effectively the same thing, and so the idea being that we should cancel these is the thought. Is that a fair assumption? Let's look at this overload. So when you do this overload here, That works. Okay. Get command handler. Yeah, okay. So that's fine. I'm just trying to decide if we should go back to exactly where we just were a moment ago. So specifically, where was that? Command line builder, something, something, something. No, invocation. One of you has the, oh yeah, command line builder extensions. So, command line builder extensions. Go gadget. And then that is not the same file. That looks better. Close that one. Boom. So cancel process termination. We're going to circle back to this one here in just a moment. So let's clear our bookmarks for the moment. We're gonna mark that one for review in just a second. But let's go find. Wait, did I not reset myself back to main? I did not. We should do that before we get too carried away. Poof. Okay. So this down here, and this was specifically what was being called out of should this one be handled here for the default, because we don't want to do it outside, because we've already gotten to the stage where we know that the commands handler has thrown, right? So that means that whoever wrote the command handler didn't bother to handle the exception themselves. And in here, we don't want to override. If we give them if we call out to an exception handler, we don't want to make any assumptions on what they're going to do. That's if you pass in your own exception handler, it's on you to do the right thing. And so the question then comes is, should this do something different if the exception is an operation canceled exception? I think the answer is yes. The question is what? Because in reality, on an operation canceled exception, none of this matters, right? Because the idea is we don't want to write out this message. And these calls here don't matter if we aren't writing anything out. So we're now down to just setting the result code. And I think there's a bit of a question of what should the result code be. I think letting it stay and fail out like it was before is fine. So if exception is not operation canceled exception, right? Boom, boom, boom. Why can I not spell? Is it because I keep putting in two L's? Is that the problem? Yes. Hello. IntelliSense. Can update. Okay. Oh, and this guy is not set to latest C#. I think this makes sense right here. So here's the question. Can we go up? I think I just go right here. And I just do that. and be done with it. We'll just, casually bump the lang version right there. Oh, look, it now compiles. And I'm resisting the urge to make this static since I know my other change. I'm not even sure if Git will be hip to the idea of me being able to change this line here, but I think this is what is needed. Right? Well, let's go and write a test. And we're going to try and be clever real quick. Use exception handler test. So before we appended it to the end. So we're going to cheat. We're going to put the test higher up so that the auto merge works. Use exception handler test. That one. Turn off caps lock. So before, what we did is we added the test at the bottom. If we come up here, right, what we're going to do is we're going to go above this test. We're going to go right here. That way it auto merges. Okay, so public async task. Foo sounds like a great name for the moment. Okay, so let's figure out our test. This is what we did last time. And what are we wanting to do? So when thrown exception is from cancellation, no output is generated. All right, so, and I think I want to be explicit and grab that. Should, and I think there's actually a should be empty. Should be empty. Boom. So we will not specify an exception handler. We want the default to handle it. We want this to be from operation canceled exception. Right? And we'll let that throw there. And that'll be just fine. Do you have a default constructor? I think you do, don't you? You do. We're gonna just go with that because we don't actually care about the message. So we'll keep it as simple as possible. And result code should how about not be 0, right? We don't know what it is. And I don't know if I care about what the value is, but what I do care about is that it still shows a non-zero exit code. Right? That is effectively what we're looking for. And test explorer, use exception handler. When thrown exception is from cancellation, no output is generated. That's probably fine. That seems fine to me. So let's come back over here. Create branch. Fix. And let's go and grab 430. 430. View changes. And we should probably comment. Let's see. Skipping output when exception is from cancellation. I know, and that's the problem. Bump lang version to 9. Okay, and that sounds good. Push, submit. See how easy it is to go and contribute? Let's see, 430. Let's see, fixes pound 430. Create pull request. Okay, is there anything else we want to try and snipe real quick? This is technically a needs discussion. This is a needs discussion. This is a needs discussion. I think we're pretty much getting towards the end. What is this? The debug directive could be a liability. So we need to, let's see here. So discuss the design a little bit. So let's explain what's going on here. So there is something in this library called directives. So unlike most of the stuff that was shown in the syntax docs here, right? I don't think they cover directives. Oh, they do. This is not something that you see in a lot of command line things. These are effectively things that give you, we'll call it meta level syntax for your APIs. So in this case, the parse directive lets you pass in a command line invocation, and it will show you how the parser would interpret that. So if you're looking to do debugging of, why is it going this way, this will give you some amount of output of how to do it, right? And there's similar ones around rendering. The debug one, so let's go and look at that real quick. Let's see, debug directive. Yeah, that's great. Find all references. This guy. So this drops in the debugger directive. And what it ends up doing is it will literally sit and hang. So if you are wanting to fire up your app and have time to attach a debugger to it before pretty much anything else happens, this occurs very early in the process, and it'll sit there and it'll write out a little message saying, hey, here's your process ID, process name, right? And then it'll just sit there and wait for your debugger to actually attach before it proceeds on, which is great, especially if you've put in some custom middleware or something and you're wanting to get a chance to debug it. This is a way of being able to do that. The problem is this is also a great way to be able to shoot yourself in the foot with it. So there's a bit of a question about, so obviously something needs to occur here. Exactly what, I think, is to be determined. So let's, some checks failed. What? We haven't reset yet. Let's rerun all tests. Did I break something by adding in that extra check? Huh? That's exciting. I wonder if the lang version change causes more issues than... let's see. Boom. Well, Linux passed and Windows release passed. Just OS X failed. Am I able to see details? Yeah, it's the lang version change. That's exciting. So, what the heck? I will have to ask on that one tomorrow. So back to this guy. Should this be an opt-in rather than an opt-out? That's a great question. This might be a good change. Okay, so prevent abuse. So have a default timeout. Okay, so rather than just iterating forever, have some period of time that once we've exceeded it, we just give up. Okay. Given two ways to access the functionality, environment variable and directive, it might be useful to discuss principles about how the two interact, naming conventions, common prefix as well. Yeah, because we couldn't just use a single environment variable. Because if there was one environment variable, every command line tool written with System.CommandLine would have it. That sounds like that sounds like a great way to accidentally shoot yourself in the foot. Let's see. I would suggest an opt-in approach as well. Developers can enable it via their own environment variables. So it looks like this may have been something that somebody took a stab at one point. The difficulty is going to be trying to write a test over that. So we can certainly do environment variables, but I'm willing to bet there are very few tests over this particular method. Yup, not exactly shocking, given that we've got. So the key thing to note is static invocations are miserable when it comes to testing, because a static method or property is tight coupling between your test and that static member. So tight coupling there, tight coupling there, tight coupling there. Now this one doesn't matter that much, right? Because this thing doesn't really have side effects. So aside from slowing your test down, tight coupling isn't as bad. Okay, this one, tight coupling, and it's a little more problematic because now it matters which way I run my test. Do I do debug test or run test? I'm going to get different behavior. Kind of obnoxious. This one I just flat out don't have any control over. And so this is one of the reasons why people really like, say, dependency injection, is it allows for nice, easy seams in their code to be able to go through and do it. The generalized name is inversion of control. So you flip that control so that you have a nice, easy seam where you can mock or similar to go through and do it. Which means this guy, it might not be possible to write a test. Yeah, probably not possible to write a test. And then if we go the environment variable approach, there's the naming question. And then there's the question of when should it be evaluated. Should it be evaluated out here at the point of calling useDebug directive? Or should it be called inside of this lambda? Now, in general, there's going to be very little, teensy amount of time that passes between when this method is invoked and when this callback is invoked. Let's see. Are you able to help me understand a code snippet? You seem knowledgeable. Sure, Jack. If you want to drop a link or post it in the chat, happy to help out. Assuming it's C#, I know enough to be dangerous on other ones. So let's see. Oh boy, you've got some fun code snippets here. Let's see. So this is doing a couple things. Wait, is this? This is not C#. Is this TypeScript? It looks like this might be TypeScript, if I'm not mistaken. Am I close? So let's see. What do we got? Stack alloc 10 and 11 and put it into A. And then load A does next element. This is compiled JavaScript. Okay. So I'll be upfront and honest. JavaScript is not my forte, but I can usually find my way through. So next element grabs the reference to A, and then deref A plus or n plus 1. Okay. So yeah. It sort of makes sense. So there's a couple things going on here. So starting on line 1, it's declaring. I want to use the term array, but and again, I'm not very knowledgeable in JavaScript, but I believe what you're going to get is a pointer to a position on what's called your stack that contains two elements, A and B, right? Effectively, that's probably the hexadecimal values for each, so 10 and 11. When you get down to load A, it's calling next element, and that underscore ref method, I would assume, is getting back the reference. So in normal C code, I would imagine that gets you a pointer. Inside of, and so it's going to take that pointer and pass it as n into the next element. And so inside of that, because it's got a pointer, and again, I hate to use the word A as array, but that functionally, if you're familiar with arrays and how those work, that's probably the conceptually the way to think of it. It would then add 1 to that reference, right? Usually shifting it over to the next position, right? To grab B and then dereference and pull out the value from that point. So yeah, so it's like an array as far as you understand. That would make sense. So it will take the pointer to the array in n, it will add 1 to it, shifting over the reference, and then dereference that pointer, because n plus 1 is still a pointer. Dereference that to get the value, which should land it on B and return that back out. But it's immutable. When you say immutable, I assume you're talking the A value because it's using stack allocation, in which I would agree with you. Stack allocation in most languages is immutable, and it's usually good for quick, fast access because you can either allocate items on the stack or the heap. Stack is fast, but you are limited in stuff. So for things like this, it works great. It's quick and dirty. So I think that's really all this is here. Is, if again, not being overly knowledgeable, but that is how I would read it. Have I ever used compiled JavaScript? Oh, so believe it or not, I don't use JavaScript a lot. There's just when you use certain languages like C, C#, there's enough overlap that you start to draw correlations between things. So I probably wouldn't have come up with, underscore deref or underscore ref or all of those methods on my own. But I'm familiar with all of those terms in like C and C++, and it doesn't seem like a huge leap of faith to assume that they work. Oddly, there's no native floating point support. Believe it or not, that doesn't shock me too much. Floating points can be somewhat problematic, and on specifically computational wise, just trying to deal with them. And so I've done some stuff in like assembly for like real-time chips on like a BeagleBone Black, and same type of thing. You end up, if you want some sort of like floating point stuff, you kind of end up doing it yourself, because when you get down to a low level, you're really dealing with ones and zeros and just kind of bit banging stuff back and forth. And so you kind of have to treat it like binary and turn off the higher level programmer brain, which makes my head hurt after a while. It's one of those things that when I was writing assembly, you do it for an hour or two, and then you walk away from your code and take a walk because my head needed to decompress. It is not my forte. But very fun when you get it to work, and it can be incredibly fast. So yeah, hopefully that helps. What are you building on the, you said this was from a Raspberry Pi? Yeah, Raspberry Pi. What were you building on that? I think in regards to this issue, I'm probably going to punt on this one for tonight and wait. I may talk to John and see what the ideas are here. This seems like something that's probably not terribly difficult to implement, but probably something to be done. Cosine code. Oy vey. Yeah. Yeah, this is the part where people with really good computer science degrees start to shine. Yeah, like I usually tell people, like, I like math with like the C# and programming languages because it's math that makes sense. Um, when you get into the fancy stuff like this, yeah, BF800. The fact that it's called sine makes me immediately think that this is. I want to do like 2's complement on it or similar to try and figure out exactly what that is. But I'm noticing I see that constant used in multiple places, so I'm sure it's a well-known something. And 0xb f8 was it 1 2 3 4. The compiler also has 0 optimization. Wait, that is interesting. I sort of expected to land. Oh. Yeah, this is sort of what I was expecting to see. Yeah, you start getting into this area and it gets very interesting. Yeah, so somebody has taken an RFC and codified it. Awesome. Yeah, no, this definitely looks interesting. It also makes me very happy that I like to live in my C# world. I'm spoiled. I like my higher level languages. I have been wanting to, because I've got a Raspberry Pi in the other room, and I've been meaning to want to grab it and throw .NET Core on it and see how much fun I can have with it. My last experience with it was the .NET stuff just did not run on it as well as some of like the native either Python or JavaScript, or I think C were the 3 popular ones that it came preloaded with. It was like, well, the .NET stuff kind of works. It's not great. And then I ended up punting it and haven't really picked it up again. So that might make for a fun stream at some point. The prime number generator. Oh boy. Wait. Oh, checking for a prime. Oh no, there is the random. You ran 32. Find nearest prime. Oh, interesting. Okay. I've seen this. This is one of those algorithms that shows up on like interview questions of how do you go through and check for a prime, and usually the interviewer is looking for something like this. If I remember correctly, there's fancy something in the back of my mind is telling me that there's a fancier algorithm with some fun math that you can do to cheat this if your language supports. What was it? There was something else about it that I remember certain higher level languages have you need some double support to be able to do. Cool. Well, Jack, thanks for dropping in. Always nice to have somebody come in and ask questions, because it sometimes feels like I end up talking to myself. Most code in compiled JavaScript avoids division since it costs a lot of compute. Yep. Yeah. Like I said, when you get down to those low-level processors, especially for embedded devices, a lot of times you have to start thinking more in binary and less in higher level stuff, because it matters a lot more when you don't have a ton of compute power. We're spoiled in like desktop environments where we've got tons of cores and lots of power and plenty of registers, and embedded systems like on a small Pi or similar, you go back kind of to the days where you actually had to pay close attention to what you were doing to make sure that you optimize your allocations and it doesn't hurt any more than it has to. Well, cool. I think I am just about at my stopping point. Jack, thanks for dropping in. Hopefully we'll see you back again. Like I said, typically I end up doing a lot of C# stuff, but I am always happy to look at code and dive into other stuff. It's always fun to look around. Yeah, not a problem. With that, I will say happy coding. We will see. I will try and keep people updated on where the System command line release gets to. We will go from there. For those people in America, Christmas is coming. Have a Merry Christmas. We'll see everyone next week.